Putting together the pieces Program 1. A training heart rate calculator. The prerequisites to programming the PTP Program 1 include understanding sequence control, input, processing, output, algorithm design, and using variables and arithmetic. Now that we have learned to set up a Java project and studied some fundamental programming tools, it is time to put them into practice by solving a problem. Programming is synonymous with problem solving. We are building our repertoire of programming tools and knowledge so that we can write software to do some useful work for us. This Putting Together the Pieces Program 1 will focus on a simple problem that we will solve by writing a reusable program. We will walk through analyzing the problem description, designing an IPO problem solution, ordering a sequential set of programming steps, and coding the design. Here is the problem we will address: building a program that can calculate a user's recommended aerobic training heart rate. A person's ideal aerobic training heart rate can be approximated using the following formula: 0.7 times 220 minus the age plus 0.3 times the resting pulse. Create a program that asks the user to enter their name, age, and resting pulse, calculates the person's recommended training heart rate for aerobic exercise, and reports the training heart rate to the user. We will use a program design strategy called IPO, Input, Process, Output. This is one useful design tool for approaching small problems and will work well for this one, as we see we need to capture some inputs, do some calculations, and produce an outcome. We will start by examining what output needs to be produced. This may seem odd at first, but when you think about it, this is our end goal. We need to clearly understand what the outcome needs to be before we think about how to produce it. It's important to map out a plan before doing any coding. So let's make some notes. Having a good map of what needs to be accomplished will make this easier to translate into Java code. Reading the problem narrative, we discover that we need to report the calculated training heart rate. Next, we identify what information we are given, the inputs to our program. Look for words such as ask, retrieve, and get. In the narrative, we see that we need to ask the user for their name, age, and resting pulse. Our program inputs will be name, age, and resting pulse. One strategy that is helpful to think about is subtracting the inputs from the outputs to help us determine what steps we need to take to achieve the outcome. This is the process part of our program. It's important to consider this carefully. Can we even solve the problem? Do we have the necessary information to achieve the outcome? According to our formula, in order to calculate the training heart rate, we need to know the person's age and resting pulse. We see that we do get that information from the user as input, so we should be good to go. Our process code will consist of the formula to calculate the training heart rate based on the inputs provided. It's good to identify the variable names right here and now, so that we are consistent when we start the coding process. We will use name, age, and resting pulse for our inputs. We will use training heart rate for the output. And we see the formula that will consist of training heart rate assigned 0.7 times 220 minus age times 0.3 times the resting pulse. We want to be sure to use good programming practices that include using explicit identifier names. Don't abbreviate, as it's harder to read and understand your program. Here is a program shell that you can use to start coding the solution. Either use the code provided in class or create a new Java project named Training Heart Rate. Let NetBeans create the main class for you, or code it yourself if you prefer. The next video, PTP Program1 Part 2, will be about coding and pick up from here.